Alright, let's look at the homework 5.1, problem number 3. Alright, so we're talking about the upper and the lower sums. So these are different from right sum, left sum, and the midpoint sum. Well, what we do is for each interval or each rectangle, we use the highest point to determine the height of the rectangle. So that's the upper sum. And for the lower sum, for each interval, you look for the lowest point to determine the height of the rectangle. Alright, so let's do this. Alright, so when you have a function f of x equals 2 plus sine of x, right? Then we want to do find the upper sum and a lower sum when n equals 2. So you have only two intervals, right? So let's look at that. So for the lighter colored blue, so that's the upper sum, and darker one is for the lower sum. Right, so this one is not it because the lower sum should be down here, and this is not going to be it, right? That's not going to be it. So it looks like the picture is this guy right here. Right, so you can see that for the upper sum, right? So we have this lighter colored one. So it's actually we can do it by in my head. So you have it's pi times 3. So 3 pi is the upper sum. So 3 pi, right? Right, it's 3 pi. There, let's see. Oop. Actually, round to answer to 2 decimal places. Okay, so I have to go here. All right. So if you do 3 pi, hit enter, and was it the 3 decimal places? Hold on, I'm gonna go back, and 2 decimal places. So we actually have it there, right there. So it's a 9.42, right? So I'm gonna type it in. So this is 9.42. Right. For the lower sum, you can see that it's 2 times pi, so it's 2 pi. So if you compute that, 2 pi on GeoGebra, so it's a 6.28, right? So we're gonna go here and 6.28. All right. And then let's see. Let's go ahead and submit it and see if we got it correctly, right? So I'm gonna go down here and submit for testing. Here. All right, so it looks like we got this one, first one correctly, right? And we got the picture correctly. All right, so when n equals 4, the picture that we are looking for is the very first one is actually the one that's the correct one. Right, so what we need to do is we need to use the so 0 for the first rectangle, and pi over 4 for the second, and the 3 pi over 4 for the third, and pi for the that's for the lower sum. And upper sum, you would have to use the pi over 4 and the pi over 2, and then pi over 3 pi over 4 again. All right, so let's do that, and so I'm gonna just go to GeoGebra. All right, so I'm gonna just put the function here, f of x is equal to 2 plus sine of x. All right, so we have this picture right here. All right. And then you're going from 0 to pi, so I'm going to just write vertical line. So we're talking about this region right here. All right. Then I'm going to put a bunch of, hold on a sec, I'm going to change some setting. All right, so I want to change the tick marks here. So you can go to options and advanced setting, and then go to the second one, graphics, and x-axis. Alright, then the distance says that instead of 0.5, I'm going to use pi over 2. Alright, so we have that. All right, then let's see. I think that would probably do it. All right, so that's good enough. All right. So what we want to do is we want to find, so we need the 4 rectangles. So let's do the upper sum. All right. So to find the height of the first triangle, you would plug in. So here, so pi over 4. So you would do a f of pi over 4 is the first one. And the second one is f of pi over 2. Right. Third one is still f of pi over 2 because that's the highest point. So f of pi over 2. And plus, right, last one would be f of, that would be right before, so 3 pi over 4. So 3 pi over 4. Right? So those are the height, and the width of each rectangle is pi over 4. So we multiply by pi over 4. Right? So we can get the value there. So this is the upper sum. Right? So that would be 8.96. So let's type it in. Right? So which one that? So not the 8th one. So this is 8.96, was it? All right, then when you do a lower sum, right? Right, so when you do a lower sum, what we do is width of the rectangle is still pi over 4, so it's the same thing. But right, so for the first rectangle, so we look at this rectangle, we look at the lowest point, which was at 0. So we would plug in f of 0 is the height of the first rectangle. And the second one would be f of pi over 4. Pi over 4. And plus f of, next one would be 3 pi over 4 would be the lowest point. So 3 pi over 4. And the last one, the lowest point would be pi. So you have plus f of pi. Right, hit enter. Right, 7.939. Right, so we have 7.39, and we've already chosen the correct picture. Right, so let's submit for testing. Right, so let's go down, submit for testing. Alright, I came back for n equals 4. We got the correct upper sum and correct lower sum. Alright, so how about n equals 8? Alright, so let's look for the right picture. Alright, so you can see that the lighter color one all taking up the highest point, so it's going to be an upper sum, and the lower sum it's all below. So this is the correct picture. Alright. So let's look at the let's find the upper sum and the lower sum. All right, so using GeoGebra. All right, so we split this into the 8 sections because n equals 8. So we're gonna have to have 8 heights here. So each one, so the whole interval is pi, so divided into 8. So you would each one has pi over 8 is the width of each rectangle. Right. So the for the first one, you would do so for the upper one would be you would plug in pi over 8. Right. So that's the first one, and the next one would be f of 2 pi over 8. Right, next one would be f of 3 pi over 8, and next one is 4 pi over 8. Right, f of. Right, so that will be the first 4 rectangles. Right, the last 4 we're gonna pick the for the fifth one. We actually used the same height, f of 4 pi over 8. Since after pi over 2, since the graph is decreasing, we use the left hand point because that's the highest point. So the next one is f of 5 pi over 8 and f of 6 pi over 8. It's just tedious. And the last one, hopefully, is a 7 pi over 8. So we have 8 rectangles. So find the value. So it came out to be 8.65. So let's type it in. All right, 8.65. All right. Then for the lower sum, you can see that we're going to use the left hand point in the first half, and then we have to use the right hand point for the last half. Right? So we have so multiplied by pi over 8, because that's the width of each rectangle. So we would have f of 0 for the first one, f of pi over 8 for the second one, f of pi over 2 pi over 8 for the third one, and then you have f of 3 pi over 8 for the fourth one, right? And that's the first four. Last four, you have to use the right endpoint, which means that you would have to have f of 5 pi over 8 and f of 6 pi over 8 and f of 7 pi over 8, and then you would have f of 8 pi over 8, which is pi, right? So that would be the all 8 rectangles, and type it in, 7.86, right? So let's put that in, 7.86, right? So we already chosen the picture, so let's submit for testing. Alright, for n equals 8, we got the correct upper sum and the lower sum, and we got the correct picture. Alright, that's it. I hope that this was clear.